I'm great. How are you?
I am dandy, delightful, and delicious. How are you?
Oh,
Again.
delicious. Wonderful.
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of Another Picture Show. My name is Madeline.
I'm Olivia.
We're two best friends. We watch movies. I never understand them. Olivia has to explain them to me, and it's always fun.
It is fun.
So, what are we doing this week?
All right. So this week I wanted to have a little bit of fun, and
Okay.
I feel like the last few movies that we've done have been movies that we like.
Mm-hmm. Oh no.
So we're gonna do a
No, we have to
movie.
yell at a movie now?
Yes, it's time.
Ah, finally.
It's
Honestly,
time.
this is where we thrive.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog is making a cameo.
Hi,
Look,
Guinness.
this is a cameo. My dog is making an appearance. It's because I ate a piece of pulled pork and he's very interested. Okay.
It's time for us to do a little bit of ripping a movie apart because that's what we're good at. And so I figured we do a movie that I have not seen,
Okay.
and I don't think you've seen it,
Okay.
but I know that we will not like.
Oh, we're both going in blind. I can't
Yes.
wait. What is it?
We're gonna do Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh no, I haven't seen it. And I
I've
know
seen
it's bad.
I've seen enough of it to know, but we're gonna do a full review anyway. And I feel like this is not a fair intro. I feel like we're already setting our standards, saying that we're not going to like it, and we haven't even watched it. So maybe we should
I've just heard enough about the premise, and I've looked up the premise. Like I've never seen the musical, never seen the movie, but I have looked it up to like read what it's about. And like I already don't like the premise of it. And then like just I've heard a lot of backlash about Ben Platt being Evan Hansen and like or not Evan Hansen, whatever the main character's name is.
Evan Hansen.
Is it Evan Hansen? Oh shit, I don't know. I thought he was writing the main character was writing letters to Evan Hansen. So obviously that shows how much I know. I'm a little bit primed with some prior information, but I will watch the whole thing and cry through it.
All right, we'll go into it to be as fair as possible.
Unlikely, but okay.
I feel like we have to do that. We have to give credit where credit is due, if any credit is due, and try to be fair. I don't know.
Okay.
But we're gonna have fun. I know that we are.
Twist my arm. All right, I will. Promise.
All right. So with that, let's go watch Dear Evan Hansen and come back with our hot takes and big thoughts.
Cool.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so we watched Dear Evan Hansen, guys. finally committed to finishing that fucking movie.
Took us 3 weeks, but we did it.
Yeah, it was painful. It was drawn out, but we did it. I got a fat glass of wine to talk about it, so let us dive in. Yeah. Olivia, what are your initial thoughts? You always ask me first, and I feel like it's time to return the favor.
Well, my initial thoughts are stats. I'm gonna say the stats.
Oh, that's right. See, I never do that part, so I'm like, let's skip.
So, Dear Evan Hansen is a 2021 American coming-of-age musical film directed by Steven Shabotsky, based on a screenplay by Stephen Levinson. And the film adaptation of the Tony and Grammy award-winning musical about Evan Hansen, a high school senior with social anxiety disorder, and his journey of self-discovery and acceptance following the suicide of a fellow classmate. The film stars Ben Platt as the titular character that he originated on stage 6 years previous. And there's other people in the film, but we'll get there when we get there. But
the guy from Cold Case is in there.
Yeah, yes. Amy Adams is in there.
That's right. She was a surprise for me when I saw her come in. I was like, okay, Amy Adams is here. Got it.
So my initial thoughts are It's not a great movie. I didn't think it was going to be. It's just not a great movie or music. Well, I have okay, to be fair, I have not seen the stage production, so I don't really know like what the stage version is like, but if I'm just basing my opinion off the movie as a standalone thing, um it's just kind of boring, to be honest.
Yeah, I also haven't seen Dear Evan Hansen, the stage production, so I can't. It would be unfair to try and compare it to a stage production, but I agree. I just okay, well, I just got mad beef like with Evan Hansen as a character, and I know I'm not alone in that. I know many people online have like shat all over Evan Hansen as a character, but I just gotta say, like, this just really felt like a story that didn't need to be told.
It felt like, I don't know, it just felt very like 13 Reasons Why, you know?
Yes, but Evan Hansen is all 13 reasons. It starts and ends with Evan Hansen.
All right, before we get into like our deep dive thoughts on the movie, do you want to give like a brief plot synopsis?
Sure. Okay. So, Dear Evan Hansen, we begin with Evan Hansen mysteriously in a cast, and it's the first day of school. And he's clearly like got some anxiety going. He's writing himself a little letter, trying to hype himself up. Dear Evan Hansen, today's gonna be a good day. Wrong. So, they introduce his mom, Julianne Moore. She looks gorgeous. She's an overworked nurse and single mother. We know that from the jump. And Evan Hansen goes to school, and he has no friends. He's got severe anxiety. He's on a lot of anxiety medications and stuff like that. And so he rolls up and he's talking to his like quasi friend about this cute girl that he has a crush on. And afterwards, the girl's brother, Connor, also has a lot of like mental health and like, so he had like just a lot of like behavioral and like mental health issues. So people kind of like bullied him or like shunted him a little bit. And Connor like screams at Evan in the hallway, and Zoe's like, hey, that's not cool. So later, Connor kind of tries to like cool the situation between him and Evan while Evan's writing himself a little letter talking about how like, he Zoe is so great, but he doesn't know how to talk to Zoe. And Connor sees this letter after Evan tried to print it off, and he gets all upset. He's like, you're trying to use this to like piss me off and prove to people that I'm a freak. Connor runs off, and like Evan's freaking out because he thinks that Connor's gonna post this letter all over the internet. But that doesn't happen. No one knows why until Evan's called into the principal's office. Connor's parents, his mom and his stepdad, are there to tell Evan that Connor had killed himself, and the note, Dear Evan Hansen, was in his pocket. So they think that he wrote his suicide letter to Evan Hansen. And they're like, oh, you were friends. And Evan's like, ah. So the parents find out or think that Connor and Evan were best friends. And Evan does very, very little to like refute this fact, especially because he kind of realizes one, it makes the parents like kind of happy to think that their son like had a confidant, like had somebody like in his corner, because obviously he had a lot of like, issues and like really didn't open up to his parents. So like that makes them happy. And Evan is suddenly a people pleaser. And then Zoe's the sister, and Zoe's like, "Ugh, fuck my brother, he was horrible," and Evan's like, "Now I can capitalize on this." So then he just continues to make shit up and continues to lie to the point where like the class president wants him to like create this foundation in Connor's name to reach out to kids with who think they're alone with mental health issues or with any sort of issues. And so he goes along with it, and like him and Zoe get closer, and he gets close with the family because his mom is overworked and working all the time and is never around for Evan when he needs her. And sorry, like it's just like too many tropes stuffed into one movie. Anyway, so Evan and Zoe start dating all of a sudden. Like it just somehow worked out so brilliantly. And then the class president, confronts Evan and it says, were you actually friends? Because like finally she's the only person that like somewhat notices like the gaps in Evan's story. And so Evan's like, no, like, look, he wrote his suicide letter to me, but you can't show anybody. And she posts it fucking all over the internet. And next thing, because she's trying to raise money for this foundation that they created, and she thinks that the suicide letter is going to be like something that like finally jumpstarts like the donations to get that last amount of money that they need. Goes all over the internet. It gets on Reddit. People are like bashing the family because they think they were so horrible to Connor because Connor didn't write his suicide letter to them. They wrote it to Evan Hansen, his best friend. So finally, the family starts fighting with each other because they have no idea like why like people on the internet are so horrible. And I'm like, you fools, it's the internet. And finally Evan comes clean. Evan comes clean after doing this for months. I forgot to mention like halfway through at some point they're gonna like give him money to go to college, and they try and tell the mom this, the overworked mother, and she was like, no, I can support my son, and they get a big fight. That gets immediately resolved because then you find out after all this comes to light that I guess Evan connected so deeply with Connor because Evan didn't break his arm falling out of a tree. He actually tried to commit suicide over the summer by jumping out of a tree. And this might be a dark joke, but homeboy did not go head first. So he just broke his arm. Sorry, y'all. And so he confesses to his mother, like, and she's like, I will never, like, they make up basically. And the movie ends with him meeting Zoe in the orchard, which was what the foundation was raising money towards building. And he apologized to her again, and she essentially forgave him and was like, I brought you here to like see this place because I knew you wouldn't come here unless like you had a reason to. And they kind of were like, yeah, I wish we had met each other now instead of in the circumstances in which they became close. And that was the movie.
Nice.
And it sucked.
I had thought briefly, wouldn't it be funny if I showed up to this podcast and decided to play devil's advocate for it the entire time?
I think I would have started like crying. Like I would have like, Olivia, like you can't be serious.
Because
you would have to really commit to the act though. Like,
I know.
That would have been really hard to do.
I know. I was thinking back to our intro and I was like, we were pretty, staunchly against it before even watching the film. So to be fair, I would try to play devil's advocate. So one, make it a little more interesting.
Yeah.
Because we're always so like agreeable,
It sucks when you like the person that you host a podcast with and you think very similarly to them, you know what I'm
saying? And two, I just thought it would be funny, but I couldn't commit to the bit.
Oh, it's rough, man. It's a rough watch. I don't know.
Is there anything that you did like?
Oh, I will say this. So the song in the beginning where Evan and the friend, the quasi friend, are like coming up with all the emails. What's his name? Jared. Okay, when Evan and Jared are coming up with these emails between Connor and Evan, and it was the guy that plays Connor singing the song, and like every time they would change a sentence, like it would redo the scene. Like I thought that was funny. Like I did enjoy that musical number. I was like, this is cute. Like especially because like with movie magic, like they can literally reshoot the scene. Because I can imagine in like on a stage, like he would just like have to double back and do the line again or whatever. But in the movie, it was very like they did a good job like putting that together. And them on the little go-karts. That was cute. And I'm not gonna lie, the assembly. Oh, he does a big speech online, guys. Like I'm sure you all watch the movie. That's why you're here. But he does this big speech that goes viral online. So it was the song that he was singing during the viral speech. And then the stepdad like watched it and he was all like finally got really emotional and he came home and was like crying. That almost got me. Like that scene almost got me crying real Jesus tears. But I was like, oh, because I love that actor. And he was singing. I was like, what? That took me a minute. I had to rewatch like the song that he was singing or harmonizing, I should say, in a couple times, because I was like, I can't get over the fact that this man is singing right now. But those two bits I did like, and the song that Julianne Moore sings at the end, where she's like, this is them making up, and like she's like, I will always be your mom, like I will never leave you, and I will never I will always be here, etc. Like that was a very heartwarming song. And I was like, okay, I like these little bits, but the whole story, I'm just like, fuck this story, man. Like, shut the fuck up, Evan Hansen. What did you like about the movie?
I all the things that you just mentioned, I also liked. I did like the song. I think it's called "Sincerely Me." Yeah, I thought it was cute. It was like the only song in the entire show that had any sort of. There's a motorcycle driving by my apartment. It was the only song in the entire show that felt like it had like any life to it. You know, like it was cute and kind of like upbeat, and like allowed other characters to kind of like show off their personalities, even if like Connor's personality was manufactured. It was like, endearing. I thought that the kind of setup and payoff of like the parking ticket scenario
Yeah.
was pretty good. And honestly, like not ironically, I thought him Naruto running away from Zoe like in that one scene was genuinely funny and like a great addition to the film.
Yeah.
It was good character
I was like, please
development.
tell me that was improvised. Like
Yeah.
Ben Platt was just like, let me Naruto run away from this hoe right now. Also, she's the one in Booksmart.
Yeah.
It took me like half the movie. I was like, I have seen this girl before. To figure out that she was from Booksmart.
Yeah,
so.
she's in a lot of stuff. She's very talented. But yeah, so those are the things I did like. What do you think is like, I mean, I don't want to just ask like what didn't you like? Because that's
like where do I begin?
Yeah, that's pretty vague.
Yeah.
Like what do you think is why don't you think this film works?
I think I said in the beginning, it's just like I really feel like this was just a story that didn't need to be told. Like there are so many films out there about like the main character like make something up, or like, is inadvertently in a situation that they don't need to be in, but they realize it's advantageous, and they like initially want to come clean, but then they realize like the advantageous like position they're in, so they continue the lie until there is something that literally cannot be ignored, and they have to come clean. It's the same as Not Okay. It's the same story. It's just better. It's just a better plot. I'm not gonna lie. I liked that movie.
I did too.
So, because like she has to live like a lie. I mean, she put herself in that situation more explicitly than Evan Hansen put himself in the position of the suicide note. But it still was like the same concept. They, take advantage of it. They befriend people of color and take advantage of these people, and then this huge secret is revealed, or they're in a position where they have to reveal the secret themselves, like that whole thing. So I don't know, I just liked it less when it was Ben Platt. And also he was wearing like weird prosthetics because they were trying to make him look younger.
I don't know if he was wearing like prosthetics 30? Or just like had really, really bad makeup on. Like he just looked washed out, and
he just looked like he looked fake. Like he just looked like he had a fake face.
It was like a wax figure. Like
come to life. Like Dear Evan Hansen, like Madame Tussauds is right behind you. Get in there, sweetie. Like, so that's why I think it didn't work. Also, it is like such a downer of a movie generally. Like there's very little like respite from all like the sad shit talking about like mental health and Connor, and like even fucking Evan Hansen is just straight up like a sad wiener. Like I don't know, I couldn't really, there weren't very few moments of like comic relief or anything like that to like bring it up. It was, and for a musical I'm like, that's too serious, at least sadder musicals like Les Mis, like they had the hotel owners that would sing like stupid shitty songs, and like that was the comic relief. There was very little of that, I think, in this movie.
Yeah, I think it's like too earnest, but still very surface level in its analysis of what it's trying to like talk about. You know what I mean?
But like, what even is that? Like, what point are they trying to make with this movie? Because it's like, I got mad beef with Evan Hansen as a character because, as a person like myself who also has anxiety, like I'm not, on the level where I take medication or anything like that, but like it is something that, many people struggle with on a daily basis. And people like Evan Hansen do exist and they drive me fucking nuts where they think like they're the only sad boy on the planet and no one understands them. Like, meet me in the parking lot, Evan. I'm gonna take your cast arm and beat the shit out of you with it because I have no time or patience with people who think they're like mental health unicorns,
Yeah, I
like
think
suck a fat one. It's not that deep. And then like he turns around and he thinks like, oh, I'm so sad and no one loves me. And oh, but like my sad boy like demeanor is kind of like a Trojan horse to get in with this family. Because if Evan Hansen was just like, I don't know, like what is the term? Neurotypical and like not super like twitchy. Like that's so rude to say, but he was a very twitchy boy. I feel like this story would have played out a lot differently. You know what I mean?
Mhm. No, I think like all my thoughts are boiling down to like the biggest flaw with this movie is just how they were completely unable to make us care about Evan. Like, like he's not endearing. He's not, yeah, he's just not endearing at all. We're going to talk about miscasts a lot, but if Ben Platt had not been cast as Evan in the film version, like I'm sure he was fantastic on stage because like it's a little different. The like ability for an audience to suspend their, disbelief or whatever
Mm-hmm.
for stage production is vastly different than like a film. His stage performance was probably great, but in a movie where he's supposed to be playing a teenager and he like making stupid choices that awkward teenagers could make,
Mm-hmm.
he looks like a 30-year-old man uh
Yeah.
in a Blue's Clues costume making these decisions. So it's harder for us as an audience to like understand or have sympathy or empathy or whatever
Mm-hmm.
for him as a character because we're like, that's a grown ass man doing these things. He's creepy and not sweet or like not just like an innocent, naive teenage child making a stupid mistake that he will eventually grow and learn from. He hurt people, sure, but he's ultimately a child, which helps us empathize with him. He looks like a grown man, so it's like
Yeah, and he feels more
yeah,
like conniving.
yeah.
And Evan Hansen like grows more conniving and like more bold in like his decisions to like keep up this lie and like elaborate more on this lie.
The movie wants us to earnestly like understand him and care about him and like want like him to like
Right.
not face any consequences. The movie is like pushing for that. It's like very confusing and it's, are we supposed to care about him facing consequences or are we supposed to be on his side and like want
Mm-hmm.
him to get away with this? It feels
Yeah.
very like convoluted and not clear because the movie is trying to like make us care about him and then he doesn't really face any consequences. And so it's like it just doesn't work.
Yeah, that is the wildest part to me is that like he wasn't canceled. So I mean, I'm
Mhm.
sure he was canceled. Like he was, whatever, online platform like revoked. But like he's sitting in this park like, a couple months after this whole thing came out and like how are people not going like, "Hey, Evan Hansen, fuck you." You know what I mean? Like I guarantee you people in reality would be doing that if they recognized him in the streets. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like I know I might be making this comparison more the more I think about it, but like in Not Okay, they kind of do a good job of making you like almost root for her, like
Mhm.
for Zoe Deutsch's character until you realize like wow, she's doing some like fucked up shit.
Yeah.
And then, you feel the same kind of level of like anxiety and like not the same level because like obviously her life as the character was clearly on the line, but you feel a sense of like anxiety and you're kind of like, oh shit, like more maybe thinking about what would you do in that
Yeah.
situation, like if you had lived out the same lie. And like with Evan Hansen, they really don't make you care. Like they don't
Yeah.
make you be like, ah, Evan, man, like you really fucked up, bro. I'm rooting for you, but like you either keep this lie going or you come clean. Like, what are you gonna do? And like I didn't give a shit. I was honestly rooting for him to get caught, which of course, like didn't really happen until like he, revealed it himself. But like part of me was like, fuck this guy. Also, like mad beefing with the fact that he got the girl. You know what I mean? Like, how creepy is that? Oh, he's so terrible. And fuck you, Evan Hansen.
No, I agree. I think in Not Okay, they, like you said, they do a really good job of like making us understand her and like how she got into the situation that she got into. And like,
Yeah.
even though she like wanted to make it right in the end, it wasn't up to her how people responded to what she did, you know? And I thought that the film handled it really well and like didn't leave the film being like, and she lived happily ever after. It was from the perspective of, from Rowan's perspective at the end, being like, giving her speech and saying her piece, and that's how the movie ends. So it's like, she doesn't get away with it. She hurt people, and the hurt people don't have to forgive her.
Exactly. Like she doesn't get the forgiveness that Evan Hansen gets at the
Yeah.
end. And it's like it seems like completely like, unconditional forgiveness too.
Yeah.
Where she's like, oh, I wish we could have met, now or whatever. And like, I understand, people are fully within their right to forgive those who have wronged them. But like, I feel like it would have been so much of like a more satisfying ending if like, you know, similar to Not Okay, where like he, came across her or something happened and he overheard something or like she said straight to his face, like, like, it's been I'm not mad anymore, but I do not forgive you or whatever, something like that, where it's just like you lose her forever, but there's no satisfaction of being like, oh, but she's okay with my existence. Like ah! And like in a way, it kind of like I feel like it enables like I feel like I'm saying some problematic shit. Like I feel like it enables like those sad boys who are out there like who are out there being like, oh, like I'm misunderstood too. Like regardless of whether or not they themselves have like diagnosed like mental health issues, like you like Evan Hansen is clearly a boy with some problems and he was, in therapy and medicated and all that. And he still made fucked up decisions and he cannot blame that on his social anxiety. But I feel like the way they kind of, frame him in this story is like that everything he did because of his social anxiety and like his issues, and it paid off for him in the short term. Like he got the girl, like whatever, and all these people out there are probably going to be like, oh well, I'm a sad boy like Evan Hansen, like I guess I just got to be like, you know gotta do some horrible shit and like that's how I get the girl. And it's like I guess they're trying to say maybe that Evan Hansen got the girl because he was himself and like he didn't have to like rise up to society's standards of like whatever, like a confident young man or person or what have you. But I just feel like framed in this story, it was kind of icky. It just like waded into too murky of waters with like the dead brother, like the dead kid's sister, and like I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Too many tropes in one movie. That's what I say.
I think they just didn't do a great job, like overall. It just felt like very surface level. Like there's a lot of like really interesting ideas and concepts that they kind of bring up, like how Connor's family was like struggling with their grief, but in like a really complicated way because like he was a difficult person, who obviously struggled with a lot of things. And I think that's interesting and like a different way to approach the conversation around mental health, like how it affects the people you live with and how it's not easy and like it can be hurtful and damaging to the people around you.
I agree.
And I think I just wish that it could have been a bigger focus because it just felt very kind of like a background in passing thing. And I mean, I guess not because like it really is central to like how Evan was able to like get them to kind of latch on to his story because they were grasping for any sort of positivity and like understanding of their son because they struggled so hard to understand him in life. But it just it's just icky, you know? It's just icky.
The whole thing is just icky. Like it is supposed to make you uncomfortable, but like it was even icky beyond that, you
Mhm.
know? Just like, I don't know, just the whole thing, how they
And,
were.
like, Evan singing an entire song about, like, the things that Zoe's brother, Connor, like, liked about her and talked about her to him, like, from his
Yeah.
they're, like, things that he noticed and likes about her, but, like, saying it through her brother's mouth,
Yeah,
I
as if
guess?
Connor had said
Yeah.
that to Evan, like,
It's just
"Yeah, your
very
brother said this." And it's, like, really
disgusting.
weird stuff, and, like, if I was Zoe and, like, my brother's friend was singing this song about, like, all the things my brother loved about me, I'd be like, "That is fucking bullshit." You know what I mean? Like, and also weird.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be, like, smitten with whoever delivered that message because I'd be creeped out because all I'd be thinking about is that fucking speech or song.
Yeah.
So
Let's talk about some of the performances though, because let's talk about the big one, obviously, Ben Platt. Despite him looking old, do you think he did a good job?
I mean, despite him looking old, I mean, not really. Like,
Yeah.
I'm over. I'm as many people are. I am over just like 30-year-olds playing teenagers. I am really just done with that. Like,
Mhm.
can we please? Like, there are plenty of young, talented teens in the or even like young 20s. Like a 20-year-old playing Evan Hansen would be far more acceptable in my eyes. Like he obviously had the vocal range for it because he performed that, character in, musicals when he was probably pretty freshly out of high school. He said like 6 years ago he played Ben Platt. He played Evan Hansen.
Yeah.
He played himself.
He was like 22 or something, you
Yeah,
know?
so that's like, I mean, that's, 4 years, post, high school. So that's a bit more acceptable than being 29, being almost 30 years old and playing an 18-year-old.
It just felt like he was in a completely different movie than the rest of the cast. Like, the rest of the cast was, like, acting and, like, doing
Yeah.
screen acting, and then Ben Platt was doing, like, stage acting for the screen, and it was just way too big, and, like, you said twitchy earlier, because that's what he was. He was just, like, too much.
He was
Like, it
very
was
sweaty.
distracting. Yes, too sweaty, too much going on with his face. It felt like his face was trying to escape his head, and,
Yeah.
like,
The prosthetics were falling off.
it was too much. It's not comfortable to watch, and, like, not every acting choice needs to be necessarily comfortable, but, like,
Mhm.
it yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just wasn't working for me. It was
Yeah,
just too
that
much.
was too much. That scene where he finally confesses and he's singing that song to the family about, when words fail. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like he's still trying to like victimize himself when he's coming clean. Like he's like, "Oh, like I didn't know what to say, so I just went with it." Shut the fuck up and own up for your responsibilities. Like or you own up to your responsibilities. Own up to your actions. I'm on another one today, guys. Um
She's mad. Don't
when words fail, I'm
yeah.
angry. So yeah, I could go on a whole other rant where it's like, really, you're like, pretending that your anxiety is the reason that you did this. Like, fuck off. Anyway, like if he had done this, if they had made this movie 10 years ago and he was 19 doing it,
Mm,
he probably would have been A plus because he would have been the age that you're supposed to be. And I feel like everybody else acting around him was like the age that they were supposed to be in the film, like or close to it. Because I don't know the actress that played Zoe, but she definitely looks a lot younger than him and pulled off being a high school student pretty well. Even the kid that played like Jared, like he looked a lot younger. Like he looked like he could be. He probably. I mean, he looked more like a college student age, but like closer than you know, pasty Platt over here.
mhm.
So he did a
I
great
just
job with singing. Like he's a very talented singer, and I can't take that away from him. But again, other talent in Hollywood. And everybody accuses this movie of like supreme nepotism because his dad was a producer or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. It was like Ben Platt, no movie at all, basically.
Right. And
Um
honestly, don't make it. Honestly, why did we need this?
I think if they had like leaned into the horror of like the situation and like made it super campy and like made it like an like kind of like a Little Shop of Horror situation where like
He had to kill people.
he killed Connor. They think that he was his friend, and then like slowly he's like taking people out like,
Yeah.
throughout the rest
Or
of the
yeah, like
as they start to figure out his like plan, you know?
right, right. Yeah, he has to kill the class president. He has to kill Jared. Or he doesn't kill Jared because Jared's like going along with it.
Mm.
Um and then the girl finds out, then Zoe finds out like the truth and like, you know, he
Because then I
can't
think
kill her, so he has to come clean, and then he goes to jail, and then it's like a Jennifer's Body situation where he's just like levitating in a jail cell with like a cast that says Connor on it. Like that would have been amazing.
that would be yeah, it would be one of my favorite movies.
It'd be totally epic. I would have loved that. But
And then
instead,
the
they made
like
it Sad Boy Hour.
yeah, but the like the musical aspect I think would have been a lot more fun, you know?
Right.
Because right now, as it stands, I feel like this movie would have been a lot better if they had kept the story, but
Mm-hmm.
not make it a musical. Because it just I don't think it works as a musical, like a movie musical. I'm sure it works
Mm-hmm.
fine as a stage show
Mm-hmm.
because the like production is different, you know? But
Yeah.
and there's more songs that they didn't cut that they did in the
Yeah. I
movie.
felt like there was a lot of like a lot of long gaps between songs where it was just like a movie. It was just regular acting and stuff.
It was mostly just Evan songs.
Yeah.
It felt like he was the only musical character in the entire film because they cut a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the other ensemble numbers and like other people singing. So for
Yeah.
a long time he felt like the only musical character, which made him just so much more strange, you know,
Mm-hmm.
compared to the rest. But I think if we're talking about performances overall, I think the rest of the cast like did fine. I don't think that I have any major complaints. I do think Amy Adams was a little strange. I didn't quite buy her as a grieving mom in this scenario. She felt very like kind of pushy and I don't know. There was something about it that was just like off, but
Yeah, but I think I kind of liked that in a way because, like, as you were saying, it's interesting that, you know, they didn't grieve. Like, he was like Connor was a complicated person and, like, you know, had a lot of issues. So I can assume in some ways, very, very few ways, it was like a minute of like, this sound like I'm sure it sounds horrible, but it was probably like a momentary, like a moment of relief where it's like, we don't have to like worry about Connor.
mm,
Except, you know, the reason they don't have to worry about Connor anymore is the worst possible reason to not have to, you know, deal with anybody anymore is because they're dead. But I think because she occupied so much of her time with just kind of like listless hobbies, like what did she really have like the emotional depth for?
yeah.
Like when some horrible, that sounds kind of shitty, but for like when, you know, then this horrible tragedy happens, it's like, you know, what do you do with yourself when
Hmm.
like in a way like all you had was like your hobbies and then dealing with your problematic son. Um like what's like now that he's gone, like what is there left?
Yeah.
And it's like again, it's like a relief in some ways, but like in other ways it's like he was a huge part of your life. So it just like the fact that she felt like constantly on the brink of like a mental breakdown. That's how I got it. Like she's like, yeah, she's kind of pushy and she's very sweet and very like dismissive in some ways, but like
She's just desperate for something.
yeah, like
Yeah.
she just like I think she has to keep her mind off of it.
Hmm.
And that's why she like that I think that's part of the reason she had those hobbies was one, she didn't work, and two, like she just had so much emotionally invested in her son that like there wasn't really room for much else. And now that he's gone, she's kind of empty. And that's
Yeah.
like the feeling I got from her was like emptiness almost.
Gotcha. I can agree with that. Well done. Well said.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, I feel like I don't really have much else to say. Do you have anything else?
No, not really. I thought Julianne Moore was an interesting choice as his mom.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I was like, obviously when you see people in a movie musical, you're like, these people do have to sing at some point, right? Most of them, and they all did. And I mean, she did a good job singing, but I just didn't expect it. So I was like, okay, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
But she was an interesting choice as the mom. Um, Fuck Evan for like not appreciating his hardworking mother. Just gotta pigeonhole that real quick. Also, Evan's mom, take the fucking money. When they're like, we want to pay for Evan's college, I would have been like, here is a direct deposit. And then after after all the truth comes out, I would have been like, I don't know her.
Okay, I
Like,
will say
you
I
let
think
your pride get in front of the bag, bitch. That's all I'm gonna say.
I will say I think a few more critiques that I have include the editing. I felt like the editing was just wild. Like it just was like it felt like sometimes the editor didn't really know what to do.
Mm,
Um or it was just edited to like the exact beat of the song. So like each cut was like on a different beat and it was just like I don't know, it felt very like student filmmaker because I know I've done that, which is also a huge contributor to like the rhythm of the film and like helping us understand the story, the relay, like how the story decides to relay information and like put the pieces of the film together.
yeah.
It just didn't work for me. Um I
You
thought the
notice these
direction
things. I do not.
I thought the direction was really boring. Like I said, I just felt like it was just a really boring film because a lot of the songs it's just people sitting down or or just static on Evan and not much else
Yeah.
going on. So like in the opening song when he's singing Waving Through a Window or whatever it's called, he's just walking through the hallways. It's there's no like real character development there. Like we don't know what he's really singing about because he's just like I have anxiety, but like he's just walking through the hallways. It's not interesting. It's not shot in an interesting way. We're not really learning much else about him or the people around him or like his
Yeah.
life. It's just a 4-minute song of him walking through the hallways and we're just kind of waiting for it to get done, you know?
Mhm.
It there's like with filmmaking and storytelling, you have to get creative with it, especially when you have like the freedom of a musical where things are a little more artistic than maybe a straightforward like anxious kid walking through the hallways in a non-musical film.
I wish
But
they had kind of introduced Zoe during that song, like now that you say it, because like that would have been like something that the viewer could like identify as like, you know, something he wants, but his anxiety is holding him back. Like he wants connection with like, I'm sure generally speaking, and also, but especially with Zoe,
mhm.
like, like a little bit of pining in that moment would have been acceptable because it's like, I have crippling anxiety. I have a crush on this girl. I have no idea what to do.
I kind
Waving
of
through a
don't
window. I
want
don't know.
him to have any crush on Zoe until after like Connor, like because it just makes it feel like this whole plan was because he had a crush on
He
Zoe.
murdered Connor.
Yeah, he murdered Connor to get close to his sister. But if I don't know, that's just my personal preference.
I would have to read more into like, I guess, the story itself, like the book musical, whatever itself, to really like understand if like that's what they want. Like they want you to be like, ew, Evan's kind of icky and like this is a really uncomfortable situation. Because like if all of that is intentional, bravo, well done, A+, knocked it out of the fucking park. But if like they're trying to make you empathize with Evan, no.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think
Nor.
it's just the film did not do a good job of like making it clear what what are we supposed to take from this? You know,
Mhm.
like, what are we supposed to learn from this? Like, you're shedding a light on important topics, but how?
Yeah.
You know, like
And even
you're
those
shedding a
moments.
light on like problematic. You can have a problematic protagonist and not make the film like, I don't know, absolve them. I guess I
Yeah,
don't know. Like, I don't know. The film just didn't do
right.
great with that.
And even those moments where, I think one of the things they do try and shed light on was like the fact that like sometimes like mental illness is invisible.
Hmm.
Like with the class president, Alyssa, I think her name was.
Alana.
Alana. Anyway, um, she's like an overachiever, she does all these things, but she does it because like she has like crippling anxiety of like failure.
Hmm.
And, it's kind of, they talk a little bit about how like it is invisible and like I, I thought that was interesting, like cool, but at the same time, like Evan Hansen still acted like he was like sad boy, mental ill unicorn. Like he really was like, I'm still the only person out here with like issues and nobody
Hmm.
understands me. Like, shut your fat ass up, bitch. Like NT ways. Sorry. Just I'll never forgive him.
Yes. We do understand mental illness is a real thing. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't really have anything else to say.
Me either. I mean, I could just go on about how much I don't like it, but I think we've like hit every point pretty succinctly. So
Yeah. We're hopping on the bandwagon
I
hating.
would love to hear somebody like seriously defend this movie though. I know you're plotting to like be devil's advocate, but I want to hear from somebody who actually likes this movie
Hmm.
and like not pick a fight with them or anything because like, I'll let society do that, um but just to really like hear like laid out why this is a good story generally and like why it's a good movie,
Hmm.
etc. For whatever reason, if it's the story, if it's because Ben Platt is their icon or whatever, I don't know. I'm curious.
Ben Platt is,
Ben Platt
yeah,
is love. Ben
yeah.
Platt is life.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I guess we can wrap up our conversation about Dear Evan Hansen. To no one's surprise, we didn't like it, but I did have fun talking about it with you.
Of
So,
course, always.
but now we can get into our discussion of our top five. And I didn't mention it in the intro, but this week we're doing our top five miscasts. So basically, any role that we feel like went to an actor that it should not have gone to. So, Madeline, do you want to start us off with your number five pick?
Number 5. Okay.
Are these in any particular order, or are they just kind of like,
Um,
because
they're
mine
not in
aren't.
any particular order, but like when I order them, they kind of make the most sense, like 1 to 5. So,
Hmm.
okay. So number 5 was Sandra Bullock as the mom in The Blind Side.
Oh, wow. Okay. Why is that?
I don't know. I just like when I watch the movie, like I just don't believe that she's like this like cutesy like rich suburban mom. Like I just don't
Mm,
believe it. I'm like, this is Sandra Bullock bringing in a football player. Especially because like when you see what the woman looks like in real life, she looks nothing like Sandra Bullock. They're just like
hmm.
two white dirty blondes. Um, but like of course, if it's a movie being made about her, she's gonna pick like a super hot actress that like kind of looks like her. And like, why not pick Sandra Bullock? I get it. Or, sign off on Sandra Bullock being your doppelganger for your movie, but I don't know. It just wasn't believable for me.
Okay.
And
All
it's
right.
based off a true story, so like I feel like I can say that. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Um, I can't say I necessarily agree, but I thought she was fine. I don't know. It's The Blind Side, and that performance really never really made an impact on me.
I
So
was
I'm
gonna say
kind
it
of
is
just like,
very inconsequential, but I like was thinking about because I'm like I have to think about movies I've seen because
yeah.
like I don't think about movies like the same way like you do because you're thinking about editing and casting and like all these behind the scenes stuff, that you studied and have a particular interest in. And I'm just watching this shit and being like, I don't like it, and here's
Yeah.
why.
I
So
mean,
I
I
really
think
had
it's
to
valid.
sit back and be like, who
You're
did I think was like a weird choice for shit? And like
hmm.
Sandra Bullock did come up at some point in my brain. So here we are,
I mean,
I
I
guess.
think it's valid. You're a movie watcher, and you're consuming the films. So
True.
your opinion on the film is it didn't work for you. So
That's fair. What about you?
My number 5 is Pierce Brosnan in Mamma Mia.
Oh man, I didn't even put him on here. That is a great one though. Fuck, I totally forgot. You're so right. You don't even have to explain yourself. You're just right.
No,
And if everyone else can shut up.
no, I think, I mean, I enjoy that he's in it because it
Yeah.
just it makes it fun. But
Right.
he should not have been in that movie. He
No,
can't sing. He feels very out of place.
he
He's
does.
very handsome, but
Irrelevant.
it's just a strange choice. And
Especially with who they cast as like his young version in Here We Go Again. They look nothing alike. Sorry,
Mhm.
like now that I think about it, I'm like, if we're gonna keep one, we're gonna keep the younger Sam.
Mhm.
Sorry.
But yeah, this is no shade to Pierce Brosnan. He's very talented. Just not great singer.
Mm,
When it comes to ABBA, at least. I don't know outside of that, but
yeah, I don't know.
all right. What's your number 4?
All right. This one might be mildly, this is not my most controversial one, but this one might be mildly controversial.
Mm-hmm.
It's Josh Hutcherson as PETA in The Hunger Games. And here's why. Now, listen, I know it's controversial, but here is my fight that I'm putting up. And I'm not necessarily saying you're coming for me, but I know somebody is.
She's just paranoid. Everyone, like,
It's my anxiety. I'm a anxious unicorn, like Evan Hansen. Here's why. So I think in some ways, I think Jennifer Lawrence perfect as Katniss. Like I think, and I'm not a big Jennifer Lawrence gal, but I really think she like did a really good job acting as Katniss. And I think separately, Josh Hutcherson did a good job as PETA. I just don't think the two have chemistry.
right.
And if we got to get rid of one, we got to get rid of Josh Hutcherson. I'm sorry. Like, if there was a different actress playing Katniss, it wouldn't have been as good.
Mm-hmm.
But Josh Hutcherson would have made a great PETA. And he still makes a great PETA. It's just like the person he's paired with, I feel like the chemistry is just not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
And I get like throughout the series, like, they're kind of a couple that was like thrust together quite literally because of like survival and shit like that. But they're supposed to like grow into these feelings and like actually fall. Well, he's already in love with her, but she's supposed to grow into these feelings and fall in love with him. And I never believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, she just did a phenomenal job as Katniss, and I cannot imagine anybody else as her.
Mm-hmm.
So if we got to get rid of one, we got to get rid of Josh. I'm sorry. It's just the chemistry for me.
That's fair. I have not seen those movies.
Oh, okay.
No, I have. I'm saying I just haven't seen them in like a long time. I have seen
sorry.
the movies.
I cut you off at the knees there. I'm sorry.
It's like no, I have seen them. It's just been
okay,
like,
so you're not cultured. That's what you're telling me. God.
yeah, basically.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But it's been a while, so
I
can't really confirm or deny if I agree. So
okay, that's fair.
My number 4 was Johnny Depp as Tonto in The Lone Ranger.
Yeah. I will say this. Not in defense of Johnny Depp as Tonto. I will say I just didn't pick anybody who was like miscast because of like
their race.
They're a different race.
Mm-hmm.
Because like
that
goes without saying.
Yeah.
For me, but I've never seen The Lone Ranger, so like I can't speak to like his acting ability or anything. But I omitted anybody who was like just not the race they were supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody talks about that one guy who was Mickey Rooney, who was the Chinese guy in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Like I saw that come up a million times, and it's just like, well, obviously. So I'm picking. I personally just was like, I'll like ignore that. So I don't want to seem as like I'm a racist, being like actually like. I'm only saying that in defense of myself, guys.
That's fair.
All right. So why didn't you like Johnny Depp besides the fact that he's white?
I mean, that was it mostly.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought you were gonna be like, God, he sucked. Like, he couldn't even ride a horse right.
Nah. It's just like, why?
Yeah.
You know?
And especially at the
It's
time it
just
was
like
made.
blatant too. Like he's not, it's just like, what?
Right.
Why?
Like, why
Eh,
bother?
yeah.
It was ridiculous.
All right. Number 3.
My number 3 is Logan Lerman as Percy Jackson.
Okay.
I had to go into some of the childhood hits to really find like some people I was not happy with personally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only because mostly that the character in the books it starts when he's like 11,
Mm-hmm.
and 11 or 12, something like that. And Logan Lerman, when the movie was shot, was like, 18. So they had to change the movie. Like they had to change the plot of the movie because there's like a prophecy involved, and the prophecy says that when like the chosen one or whatever turns 16,
Mm-hmm.
some event happens or whatever, something happens. So in the movies, they had to change it to when the chosen one turns 21. So they had to like up the timeline and like move everything up. And just, he just looked so old,
Mm-hmm.
for somebody who's like 21 or 22 playing a 16-year-old. Thankfully, like they've learned their lesson. They're remaking it now, and I think they've cast like actors that are the age of the characters. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's hope.
Nice.
What about you? What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Russell Crowe in Les Mis.
Mm, yeah, that's another good one. But his suicide scene is just not as good if it was anybody else.
I I feel like anyone else could have become a dummy that they threw off the side of a building and onto like a fountain. Like
Fine.
it was just the filmmaking choices and the sound effects that they used that made that scene so like crunchy. But
Yeah. I wonder if it would have been more or less satisfying if it was somebody else that played Javert, Because
I
like
mean, I feel like if it was someone who could sing and we could like feel the emotion of the scene a little bit better, besides being like, yeah, yeah.
crunch. They should have cast me. What are we doing here? I am Javerina. Like,
Yeah, Russell Crowe overall is a very talented actor, but I don't know, Tom Hooper, man, just
yeah,
some choices
indeed.
that just don't work for me. And
It,
you know
it
what? If
it
it works
reads
for
like
you,
nobody auditioned for Javert, and then Russell Crowe walked into the wrong audition, and they were like, "Yes, get in here, Russell."
like he had a band, um, and he was the singer for a band, but
Was it good? I've
I
never
don't
heard any
know.
music. Oh.
But he I don't know. I feel like his musical style is a little different than what Les Mis calls for. So
I I haven't even heard his band, and I could agree with that. So
yeah. I mean, I know that like people were upset when Gerard Butler was cast as the Phantom. But he also has like experience in a band, and he's not, the most classically trained singers, but
yeah,
he's my Phantom, so I don't care. And if Russell Crowe is your Javert, then good for you. I don't know.
it personally means no, never mind to me. So again, kind of like if somebody's coming for me about PETA, they can come for you about Javert, and we've said our
When's the
piece.
last time you've like heard anyone talk about the Hunger Games? I feel like you're like overly anxious about people canceling you over this
I
like
don't know.
PETA
I'm
take.
not expecting to be canceled, but I know people really liked Josh Hutcherson as PETA.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's come up recently. Like, why else would I think about the Hunger Games? But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because they're making a movie out of the prequel book,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's why it's coming up more and more. But it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not a lot. But it's got a cult following.
Mm-hmm.
So
All right.
just
What's your number
covered my
2?
ass a little bit. Oh, this one I'm not going to cover my ass about at all, and I know it has a bigger cult following. Is Natalie Portman as Padme in Star Wars.
That's a good one.
The reason why is because I keep fucking forgetting she is in Star Wars at all. And I've seen
all of the Star Wars multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And by multiple, I mean at least twice. And I keep fucking forgetting that she's Padme. She's a very forgettable character. The only reason she's important is because she's like, you know, the person that Anakin throws his Jedi like life away for and then ends up fucking killing her. But like, you could literally like, if I watch those movies again, like you could just like blur out her face and draw a smiley face, and I'd be like, "Oh, what's up, Padme?" Like, very forgettable. Very forgettable.
I agree. I haven't really thought about that too much, but I agree. I think you're right.
I mean, she's a great actress. Like, I like
I
her in other
remember
things.
everyone else being in Star Wars, you know, like
Exactly. Like, I remember Ewan McGregor. I remember the face of the guy that plays Anakin. Can't fucking place his name right now. You know,
Hayden Christensen.
Hayden Christensen. Thank you. You know, all those hoes. But like, I always forget about her. Always. And
it might
she's
not
supposed to be
necessarily
a very
be
critical role.
Yeah. It might not necessarily
Obviously.
be like Natalie Portman's fault. It might just be the like writing, because there's a lot of writing issues in the prequels. So it might not be that she wasn't a good like casting choice. It's just how the character was written, you know, from the beginning. My number two is Kevin Costner in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Yeah. I love that movie. Like I love that movie so much, but he is not British and he speaks with an American accent pretty much the entire time, and it's hilarious. But I wouldn't necessarily change him as Robin Hood because I do enjoy the movie, and I feel like because he is that way, it just makes the movie a little more endearing. But you know, if they were going for a little more serious Robin Hood movie, wasn't the best option.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's my number one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's my number one as Robin Hood. The only thing I'll add to it is I was looking at like screen grabs like of the movie earlier, and he just looks straight up out of place. Like he himself is an anachronism. Like he just looks like a dude from the 90s. They threw in a Robin Hood costume and shipped back to like the 1600s or whatever this is fucking set, because he's just like got the hair. He looks like he came off the set of Die Hard, and he's just riding around on a horse shooting people with arrows.
Yeah.
Like they did nothing to make him at all fit in the time period. Morgan Freeman looks like he fits in. Everybody else looks like they fit in. He does not.
But it's still great, and I love that movie regardless. It's cheesy. It's fun. You know?
Totally.
Yeah.
What is your number one then? Because we shared a common cause.
I think I'm just gonna go with like an obvious one. John Wayne as Genghis Khan in The Conqueror.
Never seen that movie.
It's very old. John Wayne, the whitest man to live.
He is pretty white.
Played Genghis Khan.
A famous like Mongolian conqueror.
Yes.
Wait, is the movie about Genghis Khan?
Yes. He plays Genghis Khan.
Now I gotta look up a picture of this. As
the whole movie is a mess, for obvious reasons, but
yeah. Oh no. Well, it's a 1956 film. So at that point, they had just heard of Genghis Khan.
Just then in the 50s, they discovered
a year
Genghis
prior,
Khan.
they were like, we gotta make a film about this. They omitted all the details that he was actually Mongolian and not. Oh my god. You know what's a hot take? Is like some of these old actors are just not attractive. Example, John Wayne.
Is that a hot take?
Is it not? I just feel like people like you know, wet themselves over like 50s actors and they're like, oh my god, he was so handsome. Like,
I mean, I think some of them were handsome, but I don't think John Wayne is like necessarily considered. I mean, at least today in my circles, John Wayne is not considered
like Cary Grant.
He's a handsome man.
attractive. Huh?
He's a handsome man.
Okay, well, I guess my second hot take is he reminds me of Oscar Isaac, and I don't think Oscar Isaac's attractive.
Okay, all right, we're done. We're done here. I've said my number one.
I'm really coming in. Like, I'm going for fucking Hunger Games. I'm coming for Star Wars, and then I'm coming for the shitty Star Wars. I'm coming for Oscar
What is the pinnacle of
Isaac.
attractiveness to you? I'm confused.
You know what? So am I.
Okay, fair. All right, well, with that, I guess we can wrap up this episode of Another Picture Show podcast. Do you have anything else to say?
Forgive me. Not for what I said about Evan Hansen, but for everything after it.
Well, if you liked this episode and you want to hear more, you can follow us anywhere you get podcasts, really. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts, all that jazz. We do have an Instagram at Another Picture Show. And that's about
We'd
it.
love to hear from you if you have any suggestions.
Tell us what you want us to talk about. It'd be great.
Give us some feedback. We'd love that too.
We love you, and we'll see you next time.
Real quick, if anyone has any reason to defend Evan Hansen, I actually want to hear from you. Shoot us a DM. I want to know. I really do. And like, I won't make fun of you. I really want to know like why Evan Hansen is like such a movie or musical or whatever that is near and dear to your heart, because like I don't get it. So I want to hear from an outside perspective, genuinely.
Same. All right. Love you. Bye.
Love you too. Bye.